To understand how Donald Trump thinks requires understanding the crucible that formed him. 1980s New York real estate, a ruthlessly competitive arena where reputation was currency and every negotiation was warfare by other means. Trump didn't emerge from business school theory or corporate management training. He emerged from the specific pressures of his father, Fred Trump's outer borough real estate empire, where collecting rent from working-class tenants in Brooklyn and Queens taught lessons about leverage, persistence, and the gap between appearance and reality. Fred Trump built an empire worth over $1 billion, controlling more than 27,000 apartments, but he operated in the shadows, avoiding publicity while maximizing profit and minimizing taxes. By the time Donald was 3 years old, he was already receiving what would be $200,000 annually in today's dollars from family trusts. By college graduation, that had grown to $1 million per year. Over his lifetime, he would receive at least $413 million from his father through gifts, loans, favorable deals, and inheritance, though Trump would consistently describe this as merely a very small loan of $1 million. Young Donald absorbed his father's core lessons: never pay more than you have to, always maintain multiple options, use other people's money, and never admit weakness, but rejected his father's invisibility. Where Fred was content with steady cash flow from rent-stabilized buildings, Donald craved the spotlight of Manhattan, the brand recognition, the association with glamour and power. This wasn't just ego, it was strategic insight. In Manhattan luxury real estate, the brand itself could become the product. This tension between his father's pragmatic, cash-focused approach and his own desire for status and recognition created the essential Trump contradiction. A man who thinks like a scrappy outer borough developer while presenting himself as a titan of luxury and refinement. Understanding this split is crucial to understanding his decision-making process. The early 1990s nearly destroyed Trump. In July 1991, his Taj Mahal casino filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Trump surrendered 50% ownership to bondholders but remained in operational control. In 1992, Trump Plaza and Trump's Castle followed into bankruptcy. The Plaza Hotel went bankrupt in 1992 as well. Stock and bondholders lost over $1.5 billion across these properties. But here's where Trump's thinking diverges sharply from conventional business wisdom. Most executives view bankruptcy as failure, a shameful admission that their business model didn't work. Trump viewed it as a tool, a negotiating tactic, a way to restructure obligations when assets underperform. The corporations went bankrupt, but he protected his personal wealth through careful legal structures. During restructuring, something remarkable happened. In 1992, as the Taj Mahal collapsed, Trump managed to extract himself personally while corporate bondholders took massive losses. In bankruptcy negotiations for Trump Plaza, documents show he attempted to recast corporate bonds as partnership debt, claiming he personally owed nothing despite the restructuring. This legally dubious maneuver allowed him to report massive losses for tax purposes, $916 million in 1995 alone, while not actually losing equivalent amounts of personal wealth. The early 1990s nearly destroyed Trump. In July 1991, his Taj Mahal casino filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Trump surrendered 50% ownership to bondholders but remained in operational control. In 1992, Trump Plaza and Trump's Castle followed into bankruptcy. The Plaza Hotel went bankrupt in 1992 as well. Stock and bondholders lost over $1.5 billion across these properties. They were right. The company filed bankruptcy a fifth time in 2014. Trump resigned as chairman in 2009, distancing himself before the next collapse. In 2016, Trump Entertainment was acquired by Carl Icahn's company. The Trump Plaza closed in 2014, stood vacant, and was demolished in 2021. The Trump Taj Mahal closed in October 2016. Here's the crucial insight into Trump's thinking. By every conventional measure, Employee retention, revenue growth, shareholder returns, creditor payments. His Atlantic City casinos were disasters. Investors lost over $1.5 billion. Employees lost jobs and retirement savings. But Trump himself made money throughout. As CEO from 2001 to 2005, he earned about $3.2 million per year, over 120 times the $26,000 average salary of casino employees. He took out fees, consulting payments, and other compensation even as properties hemorrhaged cash. From his perspective, he won. He used other people's money to build properties, extracted personal compensation, employed bankruptcy laws to restructure or eliminate debts, maintained his brand, even on failing properties until he sued to remove his name, and walked away with personal wealth intact. The bondholders, contractors, and employees lost. But in Trump's zero-sum worldview, that meant he'd won the negotiation. By 2003, Trump's empire was struggling. His casinos were failing, many of his properties carried unsustainable debt, and his brand was associated more with bankruptcy than success. Then came what may be his single most important business move, agreeing to host The Apprentice for NBC. The show premiered in January 2004. Trump initially earned $50,000 per episode, but after the first season became a massive hit, drawing 20.7 million viewers for the finale, Trump made his move. He wanted a raise. His benchmark was Friends, where each of the 6 cast members earned $1 million per episode in the final seasons. Trump called NBC and demanded similar treatment, noting his show's ratings exceeded Friends in key demographics. NBC initially told him it was over. His demands were too high. Trump claims they called back the next day and agreed to his terms. While exact figures aren't public, estimates suggest he was earning between $300,000 and $500,000 per episode by 2006. Between 2004 and 2007, across 90 episodes, he earned approximately $35 million in salary, plus $65 million in royalty payments from product placement and international distribution. His total earnings reached about $100 million in those first 4 years, averaging $25 million per year. Principle 8. Loyalty flows up, not down. Trump expects fierce loyalty from employees, contractors, and partners. He gives conditional loyalty in return, tied to current utility. People are valuable when they serve his interests, dispensable when they don't. This creates constant turnover, but also ensures no one around him becomes powerful enough to challenge his control. Trump's approach generated extraordinary successes and spectacular failures, often in the same domains. Understanding why requires recognizing the specific conditions where his methods work versus where they fail catastrophically. The Grand Hyatt succeeded because Trump correctly identified a distressed asset in a location guaranteed to appreciate, partnered to reduce risk, extracted government subsidies, and rode New York's economic recovery. Trump Tower worked because premium Manhattan real estate in the 1980s bull market could absorb inflated costs, and luxury branding commanded genuine premiums. The Apprentice worked because it required no capital, played his genuine talents for self-promotion and dramatic performance, and perfectly aligned brand building with income generation. His licensing deals worked because developers worldwide wanted the Trump name's perceived cachet. He could collect fees and royalties with zero capital at risk and minimal involvement. Between property licensing, product endorsements, and The Apprentice, he earned hundreds of millions while avoiding the operational headaches of actually running businesses. What failed? The Atlantic City casinos failed because gambling requires operational excellence, customer service, and competitive differentiation, none of which were Trump's strengths. Building monuments to yourself doesn't generate customer loyalty when cheaper casinos offer better odds. Servicing massive high-interest debt requires consistent cash flow, which Trump couldn't generate against competition. His belief that his brand alone would draw customers proved false. The Trump shuttle failed because business travelers care about schedules and reliability, not gold-plated bathroom fixtures.
The Plaza Hotel failed because running a luxury hotel requires hospitality expertise, not just branding. Trump University failed because selling $35,000 real estate courses that didn't deliver promised results inevitably generated lawsuits. The pattern is clear. Trump succeeds when brand perception drives value, when he can partner to reduce risk, when he faces unsophisticated counterparties, and when he can exit before operational reality catches up with promotional hype. He fails when operational quality matters, when customers can easily compare alternatives, when debt service requires consistent performance, and when he can't exit before problems compound.
His thinking is optimized for one-time transactional deals, sell a condo, license a name, make a TV show. It's poorly suited for ongoing operations requiring sustained excellence, employee retention, and customer loyalty. Understanding Trump's business thinking requires understanding the psychological framework that enables it. Several characteristics appear essential. Extreme confidence bordering on narcissism. Trump genuinely believes his judgment is superior to others, even in domains where he lacks expertise. This isn't an act. When he claims his properties are the best, he appears to truly believe it even when objective evidence suggests otherwise. This absolute confidence is crucial because it enables aggressive moves that more self-aware people would avoid. You can't borrow billions for casinos while projecting doubt about whether they'll work.
Comfort with contradiction. Trump can hold contradictory positions simultaneously without apparent discomfort. Properties are worth $100 million for loan applications, but $40 million for tax purposes. His inheritance was both a small loan of $1 million and actually $413 million received over decades. He both built successful casinos and those casinos went bankrupt, yet he personally profited. These contradictions don't register as problems because he evaluates claims based on current utility, not logical consistency. Transactional rather than relational thinking. Most successful business people build networks of long-term relationships based on mutual trust and repeated positive interactions. Trump views relationships as transactions, valuable when they serve immediate purposes, dispensable otherwise. This allows ruthless efficiency in using people, but limits ability to build lasting institutions. Immunity to shame. Multiple bankruptcies, stiffed contractors, failed products, public humiliations. None of these appear to genuinely shame Trump or cause him to change approach. This psychological armor is essential. If criticism or failure affected him the way it affects most people, he couldn't operate this way. His ability to declare bankruptcy, walk away from debts, and immediately start promoting the next venture requires not caring what others think about these actions. Reality distortion through repetition. Trump doesn't just make claims, he repeats them constantly until they become truth in his mind and in public discourse. Trump Tower has 58 floors, but he marketed it as having 68. He earned $214 million from The Apprentice, but claims $500 million. Repeated enough, these inflated figures become the accepted narrative, and the actual facts fade into footnotes that only critics mention. Instinct over analysis. Trump's decisions are famously gut-based rather than data-driven. This sometimes works brilliantly. His instinct about The Apprentice's value was correct even when others doubt it. But it also leads to catastrophic errors. His instinct that he could make Atlantic City casinos work despite market saturation was disastrously wrong. The successes validate his faith and instinct, while the failures get reframed as external factors beyond his control. Trump's business career spans 5 decades, hundreds of deals, and outcomes ranging from spectacular success to complete disaster. But through it all runs a consistent pattern of thinking that explains both the triumphs and the failures. At its core, Trump's approach is about maximizing personal upside while minimizing personal downside. Use other people's money so when things go well, you capture gains, but when they go poorly, others bear losses. Build brand value separate from asset value so you can license your name globally with zero capital at risk.
Control narratives, so perception of success generates actual opportunities regardless of underlying performance. Use every legal mechanism, bankruptcy, aggressive accounting, favorable partnerships, to protect personal wealth while corporate entities fail. This is not conventional business thinking. Most business education emphasizes operational excellence, stakeholder management, sustainable competitive advantages, and building institutions that outlast their founders. Trump's approach is nearly the opposite: opportunistic, transactional, brand focused, and centered on extracting maximum value for himself rather than building enduring organizations. Yet, it would be wrong to dismiss this as mere grift or failure. Trump's net worth, whatever the exact figure, clearly runs into billions. He built one of the world's most recognized personal brands. He earned over $400 million from a television show that portrayed him as the ultimate business success. He leveraged real estate success into global celebrity, into political power. By the metrics he cares about, wealth, fame, power, the approach worked. The costs were borne by others: contractors who didn't get paid full amounts owed, investors who bought bonds in casinos that went bankrupt, employees who lost jobs and retirement savings when properties failed, students who paid thousands for Trump University courses that didn't deliver promised results, banks that lent billions and eventually wrote off portions as losses, cities that granted tax abatements while cutting essential services. But from Trump's perspective, business is competition, and competition has winners and losers. If he's winning, someone else losing is proof he's playing the game correctly. The idea that he owes contractors full payment, bondholders their returns, employees job security, or cities their tax revenue seems less intuitive to him than the idea that everyone should look out for their own interests and he's simply better at it than they are. Understanding Trump's business thinking doesn't require agreeing with it ethically or admiring it strategically, but it does require recognizing it has internal logic. He identified specific insights: brand value can exceed asset value, publicity creates opportunities, legal structures can protect personal wealth while corporate entities fail, media narrative matters more than documented facts. That proved correct in his specific contexts. His success was highly domain-specific. The skills that worked in New York real estate deals with celebrity overtones don't translate to managing operations requiring technical excellence. The instincts that helped him spot The Apprentice's potential failed catastrophically in Atlantic City casinos. The confidence that closed impossible-seeming deals also led to over-leveraged disasters. Most business people optimize for organizational sustainability, stakeholder satisfaction, and long-term relationship building. Trump optimized for personal wealth accumulation, brand value, and narrative control. His companies filed bankruptcy 6 times, but he became a billionaire. His Atlantic City casinos lost over $1.5 billion in investor money, but he collected hundreds of millions in personal compensation. This apparent contradiction isn't a contradiction at all. It's the entire point. The ultimate question about Trump's business thinking isn't whether it's ethical or whether it builds sustainable institutions. It clearly doesn't do the latter, and reasonable people can debate the former. The question is whether it achieved his personal objectives. By that measure, accumulating wealth, building brand recognition, achieving celebrity, gaining power, it succeeded wildly. The costs were externalized to creditors, employees, contractors, and investors. But in Trump's framework, successfully externalizing costs while capturing gains isn't exploitation, it's simply winning. Trump's multiple corporate bankruptcies deserve special attention because they reveal how he thinks about risk, obligation, and failure. Between 1991 and 2009, 6 Trump businesses filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, mostly casinos in Atlantic City. Traditional business culture treats bankruptcy as a serious failure to be avoided if possible. It represents an inability to meet obligations to creditors, often results in job losses, and damages reputation. Trump appears to view bankruptcy quite differently, as a legal tool for managing excessive debt and extracting himself from unprofitable situations while preserving personal assets. The key insight is structural. Trump typically financed his projects through corporate entities with significant debt financing. When properties underperformed, the corporation would enter bankruptcy, allowing restructuring or liquidation, while Trump personally often retained income he'd already taken out and sometimes equity in the restructured entity. Creditors took losses, but Trump's personal wealth was largely shielded. This requires a specific mentality, treating corporate obligations as distinct from personal obligations and feeling no particular shame about using legal mechanisms to avoid paying creditors in full. Trump has defended this approach by noting he was using legal tools that any sophisticated business person would use, which is technically true. But most business people would view multiple bankruptcies as evidence of poor judgment or over-leveraging, while Trump frames it as tactical success. He survived and maintained his brand, while corporations he'd created bore the losses. This reflects his transactional thinking taken to an extreme. Obligations are binding only to the extent you lack leverage to avoid them. If bankruptcy law provides a way out, that's simply another form of negotiating leverage. The reputational cost of being seen as someone who doesn't honor debts seems less salient to him than the tactical victory of preserving personal wealth. Perhaps Trump's most significant business innovation was recognizing that his personal brand, his name, image, and persona, was more valuable than any physical asset he owned and could outlast any particular business success or failure. This realization likely crystallized during his near bankruptcy in the early 1990s when he was personally billions in debt and his real estate empire was collapsing. What saved him wasn't the underlying value of his properties, but the value of his brand and celebrity. He negotiated with banks to keep him publicly solvent because his brand was worth more than forcing him into personal bankruptcy would recover. From that point forward, Trump increasingly monetized his brand separate from actual real estate development. The Apprentice television show was crucial here, creating a carefully constructed image of Trump as the ultimate business success, the decisive executive who could instantly assess business ideas and make tough calls. This persona became valuable programming that generated significant income while reinforcing the Trump brand. He licensed his name to products ranging from steaks to vodka to cologne, most of which failed but generated upfront fees. He licensed it to real estate projects around the world, many developed entirely by others. He sold Trump University courses, promising to teach his business methods. Each of these moves prioritized extracting short-term revenue from brand value over building long-term business operations. The genius of this approach is its low capital requirement and high scalability. Physical real estate is expensive to acquire and develop, and your ability to expand is limited by access to capital. A brand can be licensed infinitely without additional capital. The challenge is maintaining brand value, which requires continued publicity and reinforcement of the brand promise. Trump solved this through constant media presence, understanding that controversy generated attention as effectively as success. It didn't matter if the attention was positive or negative, as long as the Trump name remained in circulation and associated with wealth, luxury, and power. Trump's approach to negotiation reveals several consistent tactics that reflect his broader thinking. First, he anchors aggressively, starting with extreme positions that make his actual desired outcome seem reasonable by comparison. Ask for far more than you expect to get, and what you really want seems like a compromise. Second, he maintains the credible ability to walk away. This requires having or appearing to have alternatives, which gives you leverage in any negotiation. Trump frequently emphasized he didn't need any particular deal, that he had numerous other opportunities, that the other party needed him more than he needed them. Whether or not this was true, the posture created negotiating leverage. Third, he creates uncertainty about his true position and priorities. This makes him harder to negotiate with, because the other party can't reliably predict what he'll accept or reject. Unpredictability can be a weakness in some contexts, but an advantage in others, keeping counterparties off balance. Fourth, he's willing to renegotiate what others consider settled. This includes challenging payment terms after work is completed, disputing bills from contractors and lawyers, or trying to modify lease terms or financing agreements. This generates ill will, but sometimes succeeds in reducing his costs. Fifth, he uses public pressure and publicity as negotiating tools. Threaten to go public with grievances or actually go public to create reputational pressure on the other party. This works better against parties who value the reputation and prefer quiet negotiations. These tactics are more characteristic of transactional adversarial negotiations than relationship-based collaborative ones. They can be effective in one-time deals or when you have significant leverage, but they make long-term partnerships difficult because they erode trust. Trump's first major Manhattan deal reveals his thinking in action. In 1975, at age 29, he spotted the decrepit Commodore Hotel next to Grand Central Terminal. The property was bleeding money. The railroad that owned it was bankrupt, and New York City itself teetered on the edge of financial collapse. Most developers saw a disaster. Trump saw an opportunity. He offered to buy and renovate the property for between $77 and $100 million, money he absolutely didn't have. But he had three crucial advantages. First, his father Fred co-guaranteed a $70 million construction loan, providing the financial credibility Trump lacked on his own. Second, he partnered with Hyatt Hotels, giving the project operational expertise and taking 50% ownership in exchange. Third, and most audaciously, he leveraged the city's desperation to extract an unprecedented 40-year tax abatement worth $4 million per year. When Richard Ravitch, chairman of the State Economic Development Agency, refused a tax break, Trump raised his voice and threatened, "If you don't give me a tax abatement, I'm going to have you fired." Ravitch threw him out, but Trump went around him directly to Governor Hugh Carey and Mayor Abe Beame, to whom the Trumps had donated generously. Beame welcomed them at City Hall and in front of the executive controlling the sale, put his arm around Fred and Donald. Anything they want, they get. This tax abatement would cost New York City over $410 million in foregone revenue over its lifetime, extracted while the city laid off teachers, police officers, and firefighters. Trump spent $100 million enveloping the old building in reflective glass. The Grand Hyatt opened in September 1980 to immediate success, with room rates tripling initial projections. But Trump had also inserted something crucial during negotiations. When Hyatt executives couldn't reach their boss abroad for approval on a clause, Trump drafted it himself. Within an hour, they'd signed, and Trump and his heirs now owned the right to approve or deny any future Hyatt construction in all of New York City. In 1996, having extracted every advantage, Trump sold his half-interest to Hyatt for $142 million. This deal established his template: identify distressed assets, use other people's money, extract government subsidies by leveraging political connections, partner to reduce personal risk, insert advantageous clauses when counterparties are distracted, and sell at the peak. Most crucially, use the publicity from one success to create opportunities for the next. If the Grand Hyatt proved Trump could execute in Manhattan, Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue was where he established his brand as aspirational luxury itself. In 1979, he acquired the lease on the site of the Art Deco Bonwit Teller department store between 56th and 57th Streets, next door to Tiffany & Co., perhaps the most prestigious retail location in America. Trump needed to convince Equitable Life Assurance, which owned the land, to partner with him. Rather than simply buying, he structured a deal where Equitable traded the land for 50% ownership of the building itself, generating far more value than the $100,000 annual rent they were receiving. He also bought the air rights over Tiffany's, blocking any competitor from building higher and ensuring his building's prominence.
The Bonwit Teller building contained valuable Art Deco sculptures and metalwork worth around $200,000 that Trump promised to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. But during demolition, he secretly ordered workers to destroy them with jackhammers, claiming later they weren't worth saving and would delay construction. The Met never got the art. The message was clear: schedules and costs trumped sentimentality or commitments. During construction, Trump employed approximately 200 undocumented Polish immigrants, the Polish Brigade, who worked 12-hour days, 6 or 7 days a week, without proper safety equipment, for $4 to $5 per hour cash, well below union wages. Many slept on site in makeshift conditions. When sued later for pension violations, Trump claimed ignorance of the working conditions. Trump Tower opened in 1983, having cost approximately $300 million, almost none of it Trump's own money. He secured massive loans from Equitable Life and Chase Manhattan, plus a $50 million tax abatement originally intended for middle-income housing. The 58-story building featured a distinctive bronze glass facade with a sawtooth design maximizing corner units, plus a spectacular 6-story atrium with a waterfall. Trump told Forbes before opening that 85% of units had sold for between $500,000 and $12 million, generating $268 million, all profit. But property records showed only about 60% had actually sold that year. The numbers didn't need to be accurate. They needed to create momentum. And it worked. Trump Tower became synonymous with luxury living in Manhattan, commanding the highest retail rents on Fifth Avenue. The building's success was as much about brand as reality. The lobby featured expensive materials, but the actual construction quality was sometimes questionable. What mattered was the perception of ultimate luxury. Trump lived in the penthouse, a 3-story, 30,000-square-foot triplex he claimed was on the 66th through 68th floors. The building only had 58 stories, but Trump numbered the floors starting at 20 to make addresses sound higher. This wasn't technically fraud, just aggressive marketing that confused physical reality with aspirational positioning. Trump Tower established the pattern he would repeat dozens of times. Premium branding, aggressive promotion, use of others' capital, extraction of tax benefits, and monetization of the name itself above the underlying asset quality. The building generated over $1.4 billion in sales over the years. For Trump, it was proof his insight was correct. In the luxury market, brand and publicity create value that can exceed the value of bricks and mortar. By the mid-1980s, Trump was on top of the world. Trump Tower was a success, the Grand Hyatt was profitable, and his name appeared in gossip columns weekly. His next moves reveal how his thinking could lead to both triumph and disaster. In 1985, he paid $365 million for the Eastern Airlines shuttle, rebranding it Trump Shuttle. He spent millions gold-plating the plane interiors, adding marble and chrome. His bet was that business travelers would pay a premium for luxury. They wouldn't. The shuttle lost money from the beginning. As Barbara Rez, a former Trump Organization executive, later said, he overpaid for all that stuff. Those were not wise decisions. Those were mistakes on his part. In 1988, he bought the Plaza Hotel for $407.5 million, nearly twice what experts thought it was worth. He spent $50 million renovating it. He told his wife Ivana, whom he installed to run it, that it would be the hotel equivalent of Trump Tower. But operating a hotel requires different skills than selling condominiums. The Plaza struggled to generate enough revenue to service the massive debt Trump had taken on to buy it. Then came Atlantic City. Trump had opened Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino in 1984 and Trump's Castle in 1985, financed heavily with borrowed money. Both were moderately successful, but Trump wanted something bigger, the biggest casino in the world. In 1988, he bought the unfinished Taj Mahal Casino from Resorts International for over $600 million, borrowing most of it at 14% interest.
The Taj Mahal opened in April 1990 as the most expensive casino ever built. Trump called it the eighth wonder of the world. It had 120,000 square feet of casino space, 1,250 slot machines, and more crystal chandeliers than anyone could count. The opening ceremony was spectacular, but the underlying economics were catastrophic. To service the debt, the Taj needed to generate about $1.3 million per day. That was nearly impossible given Atlantic City's market and the fact that Trump's own other casinos competed for the same customers. Within months, the Taj couldn't make its bond payments. By early 1991, Trump owed $3.4 billion across his various properties. He was personally liable for more than $800 million. The banks had a choice: force him into personal bankruptcy and liquidate assets, probably recovering 30 cents on the dollar, or work with him to sell assets in an orderly way while keeping him as a figurehead salesman for his own properties. They chose the second option. As lawyer Alan Pomerantz, representing the banks, explained, "We said, why should we be self-destructive and put the guy into bankruptcy? We'll get less out of him than if we send him out here and make him walk around as if he's still successful and alive and sell all this stuff for us." The early 1990s crisis was the moment most businessmen would have been destroyed. Trump's empire was leveraged far beyond reason. The economy was weakening, and Atlantic City's market was cannibalizing itself. But that moment, when most entrepreneurs would face ruin, was precisely when Trump revealed his defining strategic instinct: survival first, narrative second. After the banks agreed to keep him afloat, Trump entered an era of brutal triage. He sold the Trump shuttle. He gave up ownership stakes. He surrendered the plaza. The banks forced him to sell his beloved 282-foot yacht, the Trump Princess. He sold the airline, the Grand Hyatt steak, and several other assets he had once called priceless. To the outside world, these sales looked like humiliation. But to Trump, they were necessary sacrifices to maintain the single thing he valued most: his identity as a winner. One story illustrates this perfectly. In the midst of restructuring, Trump approached Citibank executive John O'Brien with a proposal. Trump wanted to renegotiate a loan using valuations that inflated his property's worth by hundreds of millions of dollars. O'Brien told him, "Donald, these numbers aren't real." Trump didn't flinch. "John," he replied, "they will be real once I say them enough times." This wasn't a joke. It was Trump's operating system. During this period, he also received a warning from an advisor that his financial situation was so precarious, he was 1 month away from Chapter 11. Trump later told Barbara Walters that he walked past a homeless man on Fifth Avenue and thought, "He's worth $900 million more than I am." But that story, often repeated, wasn't an admission of weakness. It was a demonstration of narrative control. Trump reframed his personal near bankruptcy as evidence of how spectacularly big he played the game. Even in humiliation, the brand had to project power. By the mid-1990s, Trump was no longer the wunderkind of Manhattan real estate. He was at best a regional developer with a glamorous building, a tricky financial past, and a name the tabloids still like to print. But Trump's true genius emerged here. He realized that the path back to dominance didn't run through traditional business. It ran through media. The New York tabloids, the Post, and the Daily News were addicted to him. They covered his divorce from Ivana like it was a royal scandal. They obsessed over his relationship with Marla Maples. They ran quotes from Trump about foreign policy, economics, and celebrities, even though he had no formal expertise in any of them. Trump understood this dynamic better than anyone. Attention is a form of currency, and he was getting it for free. So he fed the machine. He called reporters pretending to be John Barron and John Miller, offering glowing quotes about himself supposedly from impartial spokespeople. Journalists knew it was Trump, but they ran the quotes anyway because they made great copy. It didn't matter whether the stories were flattering or ridiculous. What mattered was that he stayed in the public eye. This obsession with publicity led to his first presidential flirtation in 1999, when he explored running under the Reform Party banner. He didn't get far, not because he wasn't serious, but because the environment wasn't ready. The country didn't see him yet as a business savant or political force, but the experience taught him something pivotal. Politics produced more attention than real estate ever could. Publicity would be the bridge between the ruins of the early 1990s and the rebirth of the 2000s. When The Apprentice launched in 2004, Trump was not the business colossus the show depicted. His casinos were weak, his debts were heavy, and his reputation was mixed at best. But television is not journalism. It is myth-making. Producer Mark Burnett understood something profound. Trump wasn't just a businessman, he was a character. And America loves characters. On set, Trump insisted on certain visual cues. His boardroom chair had to be higher than everyone else's. The lighting on his face had to hide signs of aging. His entrance shot, him stepping off a helicopter or limousine, had to present him as a titan. Contestants arrived believing they were entering the inner sanctum of a billionaire CEO. The reality, revealed later by staff, was that the Trump Organization's actual offices were far more modest. But Burnett and Trump built a stage version of Trump's empire: sleek, marble, gold, decisive. This had real business consequences. One developer in Dubai admitted that when he signed a licensing deal for a Trump Tower, he did so because he saw him on The Apprentice. I assumed he built empires. Another developer in Turkey told reporters that after signing a licensing deal worth tens of millions, Trump Tower Istanbul exists because of the power of that brand. The Apprentice didn't just polish Trump's reputation, it reauthored it. He went from a man known for bankruptcies to a man known for firing people on TV. The audience didn't see Chapter 11 filings, they saw helicopters, boardrooms, and gold accents. The line between reality and performance blurred. Eventually, for many viewers, there was no line. The licensing explosion monetized perception at scale. By the late 2008s, Trump had perfected the business model he'd use for the rest of his career. License the name, not the product. Trump vodka, Trump steaks, Trump shirts, Trump mattress, Trump home, Trump magazine, Trump ties, Trump cologne, and even Trump water. Most of these products were mediocre or outright failures, but they produced upfront licensing fees. Some examples: Trump vodka launched with the slogan "Success Distilled" and ended in bankruptcy after distributors stopped ordering it. Trump steaks were sold through Sharper Image, a company known for high-end gadgets, not meat. They lasted 2 months. Trump University promised to teach his real estate secrets. It delivered high-pressure sales tactics and ultimately settled fraud lawsuits for $25 million. But none of these failures mattered financially. Trump had created a frictionless system where 1. A partner licenses the name, 2. Trump collects fees upfront and royalties on sales, 3. If the product fails, the partner loses money, not Trump, 4. If the product succeeds, Trump claims it as another proof of his genius. He couldn't scale real estate endlessly, but he could scale the idea of Trump endlessly. The political rebrand, turning celebrity into power. By 2010, Trump's brand was everywhere, but the culture was shifting. Reality TV was no longer just entertainment. It was becoming a launching pad for political aspiration. Trump saw what others missed. Politics is downstream from fame. The turning point came with the rise of the birther conspiracy theory. Trump embraced it aggressively on television, gaining massive media attention. Cable networks invited him as a political commentator. Polls began to show Republicans viewing him as a serious figure. This wasn't luck. It was deliberate strategy. Trump's own aides later admitted that the birther commentary was a test balloon. If media attention surged, Trump would explore politics more seriously. It surged. By the time he descended the Trump Tower escalator in 2015, the brand was so powerful, the myth so entrenched, that millions saw him not as the guy whose casinos repeatedly failed, but as the decisive billionaire from The Apprentice. The line between the man and the persona had dissolved. He wasn't running as a businessman. He was running as a character America already believed in. The campaign was, in many ways, an extension of his business thinking. Use OPM, donor money, party resources, media airtime. Control the narrative. Call every loss a win, every criticism fake, every scandal a witch hunt. Attack when attacked. Nicknames, insults, lawsuits. Brand is product. Trump wasn't a surname, it was political messaging. Perception precedes reality.
Polls mattered less than rally optics. He had spent 40 years perfecting the art of dominating attention. Politics simply offered a bigger through line, Trump's mindset as a immune system. Across
All these stories, from the Commodore to the Taj Mahal, from The Apprentice to the White House, Trump's thinking has been remarkably consistent. His worldview is a kind of psychological immune system designed to protect the two things he values above all: his brand and his dominance. Here's a pattern. 1. Spot the opportunity. A distressed property, a weak competitor, a television gap, a political vacuum. 2. Use leverage, not personal capital. Partners, lenders, cities, media outlets, anyone but himself. 3. Create a narrative of inevitable success, whether or not the underlying business supports it. 4. Extract maximum short-term value. Fees, licensing, publicity, salaries, perks. 5. Exit or blame others when the operation falters. Bankruptcy courts, partners, banks, employees, markets. Someone else takes a hit. 6. Repackage the story as victory and move on. I told you so. They couldn't run it without me. We built something incredible. The best ever. This cycle allowed him to survive moments that would have ended other careers. But it also explains why so many of his ventures ultimately collapsed once operational reality replaced promotional momentum. Trump thinks that a man who believes the game is rigged and that he is simply smarter at playing it than anyone else. And crucially, he believes the scoreboard doesn't lie. If he emerges with his brand intact and his wealth larger, then whatever pain others suffered along the way was simply the normal collateral damage of capitalism.